RRLNTS Net nightly at 6:30 p.m. W5FC. I need to make myself very clear. If we uplink now, Skynet will be in control of your military.
But you'll be in control of Skynet, right?
That is correct, sir.
Skynet.
It's Skynet.
Skynet is our weekly net on astronomy and space, and it will be coming up in just a few seconds. So feel free to join us. This is K5KTX. Here's a repeater before we begin the 9 p.m. Skynet. This is K5KTX. My name is Kelley, and I'll be your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. Skynet is a weekly net called every Saturday night at 9 p.m. concerning the subject of astronomy. Our purpose is to help amateurs become more familiar with the nighttime and daytime sky, astronomy, and space in general. Net is open to all amateurs interested in this topic, and we encourage your participation, comments, and suggestions for this net. Stations with priority or emergency traffic may enter the net at any time by using the pro sign break, break, and your call. Is there any emergency or priority traffic? This is a directed net. Please do not transmit without direction from net control, that would be me, and stations are reminded to ID at the end of your transmissions. This weekly net operates on 146.880 megahertz with a PL tone of 110.9. Check-ins via Echolink are also possible using the W5FC Dash R station ID or Echolink node 37247. Tonight's topics, astronomy charts, pictures, and live audio-video links are available online. Go to www.w5fc.org right now for the complete list. Remember to tell others about this popular net. All amateur operators are welcome. You need not be a member of any amateur radio club to participate. This net is 90 minutes long and is structured in several parts, and we may or may not get to all of them, starting with general announcements, Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events, such as where and when you can look through a telescope. Not tonight, unfortunately. Discussion topic of the evening, what can you see in the sky tonight? A featured constellation or object or topic, recent astronomical discoveries, space exploration and space history, visible satellite passages over the next couple of days, astronomical Q&A, and a 73 round. All amateurs licensed to transmit on this frequency are invited to check in. Let's start with round one, which is low power and short time check-ins. If you are low power and or short time, please come now with your call sign, slowly and phonetically, your name, and where you're transmitting from this evening.
Oh, that was a mess.
All right, we'll try one more time. Do we have any low power or short time check-ins? Please come now with your call sign, slowly and phonetically, your name, and where you're transmitting from. All right, well, let's move on to general check-ins. If you would like to check in tonight via RF, please come now with your call sign, slowly and phonetically, your name, where you're transmitting from, and we'll get to Echolink in just a few moments.
This is November 5, Bravo, Bravo, Bill in Irving. Kilo Foxtrot 5, Delta Echo Yankee, Mike, Mobile, Peter Saginaw.
Charlie 5, Oscar Zulu Tango, Carolyn and Louisville.
Kilo Golf 5, Papa, Mike, Richardson, 5 watts. Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-Ray, Tom, Louisville.
This is Whiskey Bravo 5, Oscar Zulu Lima, Brenda and DeSoto.
Oh, Foxtrot 5, Zulu, Bravo, Lima, Bill, Farmers Branch.
This is Kilo Golf 5, Echo India Uniform, David, St. Paul, Texas.
This is November 5, Whiskey Oscar India, William and Allen.
This is Kilo Golf 5, Bravo Zulu Whiskey, Jay near Weatherford.
All right, let me go with that group. I heard N5BB Bill, KF5DEY Mike, KC5OZT Carolyn, KG5P Mike, KE5ICX Tom, WB5OZL Brenda, KF5ZBL Bill, KG5EIU David, N5WOI William, and KG5BZWJ. Do we have any general check-ins? Please come now, same request. Call sign phonetically, your name, and where you're transmitting from. All right, let's move over to Echolink. If you are on Echolink and would like to check in, you can either do so via audio or if you want to check in on the text window. Either way is fine. Please come now with your call sign, your name, and where you're transmitting from.
This is Whiskey 2 in Fairview.
Okay, I heard WW2CBI. Ron, welcome to the net this evening. And I see a few other people over there. Let's try one more time, see if anybody else wants to check in. If not, we'll move on. Go ahead. All right, one final round. Anybody, any mode who would like to check into tonight's net, please come now with your call sign slowly and phonetically, your name and where you're transmitting from. All right, well, I guess we're going to have some light check-ins this evening. Everyone must be out enjoying a little bit of Irish festivities. Let's go ahead and get started. Do we have any announcements for this evening's net? These can be ham, astronomical, space, or of general interest to licensed hams. If so, please come now with your call sign. Not hearing any, so I'll have a couple myself. The first is if you're interested in amateur radio satellite, the AMSAT group has 2 nets available to Dallas residents. The first one is on Tuesday evenings at 8 o'clock p.m. Central Time. You will need Echolink installed and be registered. You can find the net under Groups and AMSAT. Also, a live audio link is available on their website at amsatnet.com. This net originates in Houston, Texas. At 9 o'clock p.m. on the Arlington repeater, which is 147.140 megahertz with a PL tone of 110.9 positive offset. Of course, the Dallas Amateur Radio Club has nets every single night of the week, and I'm not going to go through all of them, but you can...
Absolutely, I'd love to. So, here we go. Tonight's movie, 10:30 p.m. You've got to go watch it on your own. We can't do the thing that way, but let's see here. Can't do it over the radio, but here we go. Come on down to Bartertown. We have the deals, and we're dealing. Entity says we have to get rid of one of those pre-apocalyptic XBGT Coupe V8 interceptors. This baby right here has only one owner, and he won't be asking any questions about your credit. Town, bring in your camel train or gyrocopter. We're making deals, and if you act now, we'll give you 2 free tickets to this weekend's Thunderdome. Remember, 2 men enter and 1 man leaves, and he won't have a certain XBGT V8 interceptor. So join us for the next Afterglow movie, Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome from 1985. We'll be talking about it at 10:30. Even if you didn't see the movie, it's okay. We'll castigate you locally, but that's okay. We'll tell you what you missed. So Mad Max Thunderdome, Beyond Thunderdome. Not Thunderdome, Beyond Thunderdome, 10:30 p.m. That's it for me, KE5ICX.
Thank you, Tom. And this is K5KTX for Skynet. And, of course, you can keep up with all of the DARC events, nets, and activities by going to the club's website, which is a really nice website, by the way, at W5FC.org. Before we move on to our next section, do we have any additional check-ins? If you would like to check in for tonight's net, please come now with your call sign, slowly and phonetically, your name, and where you're transmitting from.
Kilo Foxtrot 5 Hotel Mike Sierra, Bill in Grand Prairie.
Kilo Foxtrot 5, Papa Delta Sierra, Billy and Sherman on Echolink.
All right, let me pick up those two. I have KF5HMS Bill and KF5PDS Billy. Welcome to the net this evening. Let's move on to the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events, starting with the monthly meetings, which are held on the 4th Friday of every month, except for November when they are on the 3rd Friday due to Thanksgiving, and we usually don't have in December. The meetings are held at the University of Texas at Dallas campus in Richardson. The meeting begins at 7:30 p.m. normally in the Science Learning Building. However, this month's meeting, which is next Friday, March the 23rd, it will be in a nearby building, the Johnson Building, which is JO, on the campus map. It's just a little bit to the northeast of this Science Learning Center. The best place to park is in Lot H, where we have been given permission to park in the orange, gold, or green spaces after 5 o'clock p.m. You can park it as long as you choose a green space. Otherwise, you risk getting a ticket. The meeting includes programs presented by members or guest speakers and a slideshow of the current constellation of the month. As of this moment, I do not know what the presentation is going to be about, but of course, it's worth the price of admission, which is free, just to hear Chaz, KF5JHA, and his sidekick Dennis do the constellation of the month. So be sure to come out for that. The Texas Astronomical Society also hosts observing parties every Saturday night beginning at sunset. Each week is at a different location for observing, so make sure you get the complete list for the details for the Saturday you wish to attend by going to texasastro.org. Click on the calendar link up at the top and select the date or the event that you want to attend. Again, all of our events are free and open to the public and very family-friendly. Tonight is the third Saturday of March, which means normally we would have a star party in Cedar Hill at the J.W. Williams Park. However, of course, if you've been outside lately, you know that we don't have any clear skies at all in which to have a star party, so it has been canceled. I did want to mention that coming up this coming Tuesday, March the 20th, we will have a star party at the Farmers Branch Historical Park, which is a very nice park. They turn off the lights for us, and it's a really nice facility in the middle of town. And so that star party will be this Tuesday night, the 20th, as long as the weather's okay. If it's not, I believe it will be pushed to the Thursday, the 22nd. And this is our regular rotation for our Saturday night parties. The first Saturday of the month is in Garland at Spring Park. The second Saturday is at Frisco Commons Park in Frisco. Third Saturday is in Cedar Hill, J.W. Williams Park. And the fourth Saturday is Stars on the Rock at Lakeshore Park in Rockwall. And again, those are open, free to the public, and they begin around sunset, although some of them may begin a little bit early with solar observing. I also wanted to tell you about a couple of other events that are coming up in April that you might want to put on your calendar. The first one is on April the 14th, which is a Saturday. This will be our spring star party at the Palo Pinto Mountain State Park. And you may be thinking to yourself, there's a Palo Pinto Mountain State Park? Well, not quite. The land has been purchased, and they're just waiting for the funds in which to develop the park. But we do have, we are working with the park staff to host a star party there twice a year. The first one will be in April, April the 14th. And again, you can go to texasastro.org, click on the calendar, and go to April the 14th and click on the link for that event to get all of the details. And Palo Pinto Mountain State Park, by the way, is just west of Weatherford, so it's not too far away from the Metroplex. Very nice dark skies. And the neat thing about this state park is once it does get developed, it is planned to be the first state park in the Texas State Park system that will have a focus on astronomy. So that will be really neat when they get all of that developed. That's on April the 14th. Also, on April the 21st, which is the following Saturday after that, we will have a star party at the Mesquite Planetarium, which is a little bit closer to home, but that's April the 21st. Mesquite Planetarium, you can't miss it. It's right underneath that big, giant radio tower in Mesquite off of Military Parkway. does anyone need any fills on any of the information about the Texas Astronomical Society? Please come now. All right, before we move on to our discussion topic of the evening, do we have anyone else who would like to check in for tonight's net? Please come now with your call sign, slowly and phonetically, your name, and where you're transmitting from.
Golf 5 Alpha Papa Lima, Patrick in Dallas.
Golf 5 Alpha November Papa Allen in Dallas.
Kilo Foxtrot 5, Uniform Whiskey, Whiskey, Philip and Crandall. Right.
Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, would you please add Stephen, N5YEO, over in San Antonio. He's over on Echolink, KE5ICX.
All right, thank you for that, Tom. And I have KG5PPL Patrick, K5ANP Allen, KF5UWW Philip, and N5YEO Stephen. Welcome to everybody to the net. All right, now time for the topic. Since I'm the net control operator, I get to choose tonight's topic. And the last few months, I have been talking about different missions from the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, which is NASA's research center based out in Pasadena, California. Now, last month, I presented about the twin Voyager missions. As a recap, Voyager 2 was launched first on August the 20th, 1977. Voyager 1 was launched on a faster, shorter trajectory on September the 5th, 1977. Even though it launched second, this spacecraft would reach Jupiter first, and so it was named Voyager 1. The prime mission brought Voyager 1 closest to Jupiter on March the 5th, 1979, and Voyager 2 closest to Jupiter on July the 9th, 1979. And last month, I talked about some of the discoveries made from these Jupiter encounters. So tonight, I'm going to talk about the Voyager's flybys of Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. Voyager 1's trajectory, designed to send the spacecraft closely past the large moon Titan and behind Saturn's rings, bent the spacecraft's path northward out of the ecliptic plane, the plane in which most of the planets orbit the Sun. After Voyager 2's successful Saturn encounter, it was shown that Voyager 2 would likely be able to fly on to Uranus with all instruments operating. NASA provided additional funding to continue operating the two spacecraft and authorized JPL to conduct a Uranus flyby. Subsequently, NASA also authorized the Neptune leg of the mission, which was renamed the Voyager-Neptune Interstellar Mission. The Voyager 1 and 2 Saturn flybys occurred 9 months apart, with the closest approaches falling on November 12th and 25th, 1981. Voyager 1 flew within 40,000 miles of the cloud tops, while Voyager 2 came within 26,000 miles. Saturn is the second largest planet in the solar system and is distinguished by its complex, glittering ring system. It takes 29.5 Earth years to complete one orbit of the Sun, and its day was clocked at 10 hours and 39 minutes. Like Jupiter, Saturn is mostly hydrogen and helium. Its hazy yellow hue was found to be marked by broad atmospheric banding similar to, but much fainter than that found on Jupiter. Close scrutiny by Voyager's imaging systems revealed long-lived ovals and other atmospheric features generally smaller than those on Jupiter. Perhaps the greatest surprises and the most puzzles were found by the Voyagers in Saturn's rings. It is thought that the rings formed from larger moons that were shattered by impacts of comets and meteoroids. The resulting dust and boulder to house-sized particles have accumulated in a broad plane around the planet, varying in density. The Voyager spacecraft took images of 17 of Saturn's moons, including 4 that they discovered. The irregular shapes of Saturn's 8 smallest moons indicate that they, too, are fragments of larger bodies. Unexpected structures such as kinks and spokes were found in addition to thin rings and broad, diffuse rings not observed from Earth. Much of the elaborate structure of some of the rings is due to the gravitational effects of nearby satellites. This phenomenon is most obviously demonstrated by the relationship between the F ring and 2 small moons that shepherd the ring material. The variation in the distances between the moons and the ring may explain the ring's kinked appearance. Radial, spoke-like features in the broad B ring were found by the Voyagers. The features are believed to be composed of fine, dust-sized particles. The spokes were observed to form and dissipate in time-lapse images taken by the Voyagers. While electrostatic charging may create spokes by levitating dust particles above the ring, the exact cause of the formation of the spokes is not well understood. The most active surface of any moon seen in the Saturn system was that of Enceladus. The bright surface of this moon, marked by faults and valleys, showed evidence of tectonically induced change. Voyager 1 found the moon Mimas, scarred with a crater so huge that the impact caused it nearly broke the satellite apart. And by the way, Mimas is that moon that looks like the Star Wars Death Star. Its first solo planetary flyby, Voyager 2 made its closest approach to Uranus on January the 24th, 1986, coming within 50,600 miles of the planet's cloud tops. Uranus is the 3rd largest planet in the solar system. It orbits the Sun at a distance of about 1.7 billion miles and completes one orbit every 84 years. The length of a day on Uranus, as measured by Voyager 2, is 17 hours, 14 minutes. Uranus is distinguished by the fact that it is tipped on its side. Its unusual position is thought to be the result of a collision with a planet-sized body early in the solar system's history. Given its odd orientation, with its polar regions exposed to sunlight or darkness for long periods, scientists were not sure what to expect at Uranus. Voyager 2 found that one of the most striking influences of this sideways position is its effect on the tail of the magnetic field, which itself is tilted 60 degrees from the planet's axis of rotation. The magnetotail was shown to be twisted by the planet's rotation into a long corkscrew shape behind the planet. The presence of a magnetic field at Uranus was not known until Voyager's arrival. The intensity of the field is roughly comparable to that of Earth, though it varies much more from point to point because of its large offset from the center of Uranus. The peculiar orientation of the magnetic field suggests that the field is generated at an intermediate depth in the interior where the pressure is high enough for water to become electrically conducting. 'Radiation belts at Uranus were found to be of an intensity similar to those at Saturn. The intensity of radiation within the belts is such that irradiation would quickly darken within 100,000 years any methane trapped in the icy surfaces of the inner moons and ring particles. This may have contributed to the darkened surfaces of the moons and ring particles, which are almost uniformly gray in color. A high layer of haze was detected around the sunlit pole, which also was found to radiate large amounts of ultraviolet light, a phenomenon dubbed day glow. Surprisingly, the illuminated and dark poles and most of the planet show nearly the same temperature at the cloud tops. Voyager found 11 new moons at Uranus and visited 16. Most of the moons discovered by Voyager 2 are small, with the largest measuring about 90 miles in diameter. The moon Miranda, innermost of the 5 large moons, was revealed to be one of the strangest bodies yet seen in the solar system. Detailed images from Voyager's flyby of the moon showed huge fault canyons as deep as 12 miles, terrace layers, and a mixture of old and young surfaces. One theory holds that Miranda may be a reaggregation of material from an earlier time when the moon was fractured by a violent impact. All 9 previously known rings were studied by the spacecraft and showed the Uranian rings to be distinctly different from those at Jupiter and Saturn. The ring system may be relatively young and did not form at the same time as Uranus. Particles that make up the rings may be remnants of a moon that was broken by a high-velocity impact or torn up by gravitational effects. Voyager 2 flew within 3,000 miles of Neptune on August 25, 1989. Neptune orbits the Sun every 165 years. It is the smallest of our solar system's gas giants. Even though Neptune receives only 3% as much sunlight as Jupiter does, it is a dynamic planet and surprisingly showed several large dark spots reminiscent of Jupiter's hurricane-like storms. The largest spot, dubbed the Great Dark Spot, was about the size of Earth and similar to the Great Red Spot on Jupiter. A small, irregularly shaped, eastward-moving cloud was observed scooting around Neptune every 16 hours or so. This scooter, as Voyager scientists called it, could be a cloud plume rising above a deeper cloud deck. Long, bright clouds similar to cirrus clouds on Earth were seen high in Neptune's atmosphere. At low northern latitudes, Voyager captured images of cloud streaks casting their shadows on cloud decks below. The strongest winds on any planet were measured on Neptune. Most of the winds there blow westward or opposite to the rotation of the planet. Near the Great Dark Spot, winds blow up to 1,200 miles per hour. The magnetic field of Neptune, like that of Uranus, turned out to be highly tilted, 47 degrees from the rotation axis and offset by at least 0.55 radii, or about 8,500 miles, from the physical center. Comparing the magnetic fields of the two planets, scientists think the extreme orientation may be characteristic of flows in the interiors of both Uranus and Neptune, and not the result in Uranus's case of that planet's sideways orientation or of any possible field reversals at either planet. Voyager studies of radio waves caused by the magnetic field revealed the length of a Neptunian day, which is 16 hours, 6.7 minutes. The spacecraft also detected auroras, but much weaker than those on Earth and other planets. Voyager imaged 8 of Neptune's moons, discovering 5 of them. Triton, the largest of the moons of Neptune, was shown to be not only the most intriguing satellite of the Neptunian system, but one of the most interesting in all of the solar system. It shows evidence of a remarkable geologic history, and Voyager 2 images showed active geyser-like eruptions spewing invisible nitrogen gas and dark dust particles several miles into the tenuous atmosphere. Triton's relatively high density and retrograde orbit offer strong evidence that Triton is not an original member of Neptune's family, but is a captured object. If that is the case, tidal heating could have melted Triton in its originally eccentric orbit, and the moon might even have been liquid for as long as 1 billion years after its capture by Neptune. The new moons found at Neptune by Voyager are all small and remain close to Neptune's equatorial plane. Names for the new moons were selected from mythology's water deities by the International Astronomical Union. They are Naiad, Thalassa, Despina, Galatea, and Proteus. Voyager 2 solved many of the questions scientists had about Neptune's rings. Searches for ring arcs, or partial rings, showed that Neptune's rings actually are complete, but are so diffuse and the material in them so fine that they could not be fully resolved from Earth. From the outermost end, the rings have been designated Adams, Plateau, Leverrier, and Galilei. All right, and then next month I am going to finish the Voyager presentation by talking about the current state of the mission, which is called the Voyager Interstellar Mission, and talk some about the Golden Record and some of the other neat things from the Voyager mission. And this is K5KTX. Do we have any additional check-ins? If you would like to check into tonight's net, please come now with your call sign slowly and phonetically, your name, and where you're transmitting from.
This is Whiskey Bravo number 4, Mike Foxtrot India WB4MFI, Ted Dallas Low Power.
All right, Ted, I got you, WB4MFI, and then also K5JDW. John from up in Norman, Oklahoma, is also checking in over on Echolink. All right, let's move on to what you can see in the sky over the next couple of weeks. Hopefully our weather will improve a little bit so that we can see something. So, Tom, KE5ICX, what do you have for us tonight?
Good. Thank you, Miss Kelley. And if you don't mind, would you please add Randy, KE5JIT. He's over on Echolink as well. Well, let's see. This comes from earthsky.org/tonight. You can go here anytime and see what's happening throughout the week and just pick your night of interest when it's clear out and take a look and see what is in the sky. All right, so the first thing they do is they do mention south at nightfall. There is a graphic of that. That's both at our website and there, so W5FC.org if you want to find it there. Tonight, March 17th, look outside. You can't miss Sirius. Well, you will tonight because it's cloudy. It is the brightest star in the nighttime sky. Is Sirius the most luminous star? No. To astronomers, the word luminous refers to the star's intrinsic brightness. Sirius in the constellation Canis Major, which is the greater dog, looks extraordinarily bright in Earth's sky. It's our sky's brightest star, but its brightness stems primarily from the fact that it's only 8.6 light years away. No matter where you live on Earth, just follow the 3 medium bright stars in Orion's belt to locate Sirius. People comment that they see Sirius flashing colors. It happens when you see Sirius low in the sky. The colors are just an ordinary rainbow colors in white starlight. All starlight is composed of this mixture of colors. We notice the sparkling colors of Sirius more readily, though, because Sirius is so much brighter than most stars. The extra thickness of Earth's atmosphere near the horizon acts like a lens or prism, breaking up starlight into the colors of the rainbow. When you see Sirius low in the sky, you're looking through more atmosphere than when the star is overhead. If you watch, you'll notice Sirius is sparkling less and appearing less colorful, more strictly white, when it appears higher in the sky. He says he had somebody write in and ask, is there a brighter star than Sirius in absolute magnitude which appears dimmer because of its distance? And he says, yes, Maria, you're right. Mia, you're right, of course. Many stars on the sky's domes are intrinsically more luminous than Sirius, but appear fainter because they lie farther away. At least 3 stars in the constellation Canis Major are thought to be thousands of times more luminous than Sirius. They're Aludra, Lizin, and Omicron 2. Although the distances to these faraway stars are not known with precision, Aludra and Omicron 2 reside in an estimated 3,000 light years distant, and Lizin at about 2,000 light years. That's in contrast to Sirius' distance of only 8.6 light years. Better idea of the star's true luminosity, astronomers like to list stars according to absolute magnitude. Absolute magnitude measures the brightness of the stars as if they were all equal distance of 32.6 light years. At 32.6 light years away, our sun would barely be visible as a speck of light. In stark contrast, Aludra, Lizin, and Omicron 2 at that distance would outshine Sirius by some 100 to 200 times. At 36.2 light years, Sirius would be about the same brightness as the Gemini star Castor, as its known distance of 52 light years. So if all these stars were equally distant, these superluminous stars in Canis Major, Aludra, Wiesen, and Omicron 2 would be seen to shine thousands of times more brightly than Sirius. So what's the bottom line? Sirius is our sky's brightest star, although not as bright as the planets Jupiter and Venus, but not the most luminous star in the sky. In other words, it's an ordinary star that only appears bright to us because it's relatively nearby. This from the U.S. Naval Observatory, from what you can see in the sky this week. Just type in those words, U.S. Naval Observatory, sky this week, and it will bring up the website for you in your favorite browser. This is what they say for this week. Some's already passed, some yet to be. Moon plays hard to get this week, spending most of her time in the glow of the morning and evening twilight. New moon occurs on the 17th at 9:12 Eastern Daylight. Luna returns to the evening sky on the 18th, when you'll find her sliver of the crescent low in the west about 45 minutes after local sunset. In addition to the moon, bright Venus should also be visible just under 4 degrees to the right of the crescent. You should also look for the planet Mercury, which will be a similar distance above and to the right of Venus. You may need binoculars to sight Mercury at first, but as the sky darkens, the fleet planet should become visible to the naked eye. This should prevent a very nice twilight photo opportunity! Exclamation point. Equinox occurs on the 20th at 12:15 Eastern Daylight. This is the moment when the center of the sun's disk reaches an ecliptic longitude of 0 degrees. At this time, the sun crosses the celestial equator at a point directly over northern Brazil. The term equinox implies that the length of daylight and nighttime are equal on this date. But here in Washington, we see 12 hours a day on the night on the 17th. This is due to the fact that the sun subtends a disk about half a degree in diameter. So it's a glimpse across the horizon well before the disk center does. From the 17th until September 25th, the days will be longer than nights. Here's the PSO announcement. We are currently in the middle of the March campaign to count stars for the Globe at Night Citizen Science campaign. We're currently using the stars in the constellation Leo, the Lion, for our estimates of the darkness of the sky. Leo's brightest star, Regulus, may be found rising in the eastern sky as twilight ends, and by 10 p.m. the entire constellation is well up in the east. The main stars of Leo's outline range from 1st to 4th magnitude, so if you have a good range of stars to look from. Compare your observations with the star charts available at Globe at Night website. Help scientists map out the spread of artificial light pollution. On to the planets. Venus and Mercury continue their dance in the western twilight sky. Mercury will reach his greatest elongation east of the sun on the 15th. At this time, he will be just 18 degrees from the sun, but because of his orbital geometry, he'll be at his most favorable placement in the evening sky for the year. He spends the week within a few degrees of Venus, but during the course of the week, he fades to a minus 0.3 magnitude to 1.2, a factor of 4 times fainter. To find him, locate Venus in the evening twilight about half an hour after sunset. Use binoculars to search for Mercury above and to the right of Venus. Once you've found him, you should be able to spot him with the naked eye about 45 minutes after sunset. By the end of the week, he'll be a difficult naked eye target, but he should still be visible in binoculars. As a bonus, the 36-hour-old crescent moon will be just to the left of Venus at dusk on the 18th. And finally, as a personal anecdote, he says, I'll be honest and admit that I'm not a big fan of daylight time. It pushes the time that I can set up my telescope for evening observing much closer to my bedtime. However, it does offer one positive, and the sunrise is now about 7 a.m. This means we don't have to get up too early to enjoy the planets that are hanging in the morning sky. Jupiter, Mars, and Saturn are strung like beads along the ecliptic over the southern horizon as morning twilight approaches. Jupiter is the brightest of the trio, just west of the meridian in dim constellation of Libra, the Scales. Mars follows in the southeast, his ruddy glimmer making a nice contrast with yellow-hued Saturn. Mars starts the week about 10 degrees west of Saturn. By the week's end, he's moved 4 degrees closer to the ring planet. So there you have it. That's this week's report from the U.S. Naval Observatory, what you can see in the sky this week. This is KE5ICX, back to net control.
All right, thank you, Tom, for that. I did have the opportunity, I don't remember what night it was, I think it was over a week ago. I did get to see Mercury and Venus both in the sky, which is pretty nice. And, of course, I've been looking at I have such an early commute into work that I do get a chance to see the planets in the morning sky. All right, let's move on to our featured constellation. So, Carolyn, KC5OZT, the net is yours. But before I hand it over, I do want to remind everyone that you can follow along with Carolyn's presentation by going to W5FC.org so that you can click on the sky maps and the images and notes so that you can see all the wonderful images that are in her presentation. The constellation tonight is Cancer the Crab, so Carolyn, the net is yours.
Thank you, Kelley. This is KC5OZT, and tonight we're going to look at Cancer the Crab, the faintest of the 12 zodiac constellations. And it's the 31st largest constellation in the sky. And it does have a fascinating myth. It was associated with the crab in the story of the 12 labors of Hercules. And in the myth, the goddess Hera sends a crab to distract Hercules, who is fighting Hydra, the serpent-like beast with many heads. The crab tries to kill Hercules, the story goes. Hercules kicks it all the way to the stars. And in another version of the legend, the crab gets crushed instead. And Hera, who was an enemy of Hercules, placed the poor thing in the sky for its efforts. However, she places a crab in a region of the sky that has no bright stars because it was not successful in accomplishing its task. The Cancer does not have any stars brighter than 4th magnitude. We'll look at some of them. The first one is Alpha, or also known as Acubens, A-C-U-B-E-N-S. However, it's only the 4th brightest star, with a magnitude varying between 4.2 and 4.27. It's a multiple star system with the brightest component, Alpha A, A-type main sequence dwarf. It has an 11th magnitude companion, Alpha B, and the brightest star, Alpha A, is suspected to be a very close binary itself. And this whole system lies close to the ecliptic and can be occulted by the moon and sometimes by planets. We'll move on to the brightest star is Beta. It also has another name, Altar, A-L, and then T-A-R-F. I don't know where they came up with the names, but it's, like I say, the brightest star at magnitude 3.5 Also a binary consisting of a orange K-type giant and a 14th magnitude companion. And our next two stars also have some, well, not odd, but well, sort of odd names. Ocellus Australis, that's Delta. And it's an orange giant at magnitude 3.94, the second brightest star. And it's marks the location of M44, the Beehive Cluster. And it actually has a second name. It's less famous, but I'm going to go slow with this. It's Arku Shannon Garush U2, which is the longest of all the known star names. That was all one word, by the way. And it means simply the southeast star in the crab in ancient Babylonian. You can see why they use the more commonly named Ocellus Australis, which simply means the southern donkey. And Delta also lies close to the ecliptic and can be occulted. Then we have Gamma, a white A-type subgiant at magnitude 4.6. It is Ocellus Borealis, the northern donkey coat. And it is also located near the ecliptic and can be occulted. And the reason they have donkeys in here is it's associated with an old Greek myth that in the war between the gods and the giants that came after the clash with the Titans, several of the gods rode donkeys into battle. The giants had never heard a donkey bray. They thought the donkeys were monsters and fled. So Dionysius, one of the gods, later placed the donkeys in the sky to commemorate this. And he put them next to a star cluster, which the Greeks called the manger, which this is now known as the Beehive Cluster. And we do have another double star. It's not bright. It's 55 Cancri. It's only 13th magnitude and red dwarf, but it's notable because as of 2010, they've confirmed 5 extrasolar planets orbiting the primary star in the system. And this is one of at least 4 known planetary systems that have at least 5 stars. The planet nearest to the star is believed to be a terrestrial planet, but with a mass similar to Neptune, but the outermost planets are believed to be more like Jupiter. Okay, and moving on to some of the deep sky objects. We, of course, like I mentioned, we have M44, the Beehive Cluster, sometimes known as Praecipe. This is an open star cluster. It's only about 577 light years from Earth. And is one of the nearest and most populated open clusters. It's got a magnitude of 3.7 and believed to be about 600 million years old. And it's visible to the naked eye. Galileo turned his telescope on it in 1609. and was the first to see it through a telescope. And of course, Charles Messier added it to his catalog. M44 has at least 1,000 stars, and more than half of them, 63% in fact, are red dwarfs. About 30% are sunlight, F, G, and K class, and a few brightest stars are blue-white in color, with magnitudes between 6 and 6.5. And that is something you should definitely take a look at this cluster. And we'll move on to another one, M67. It's magnitude 6.1, so that's a nice binocular object. And it's one of the oldest open clusters known. Believed to be between 3.2 and 5 billion years. It was discovered by German astronomer Johann Kohler in 1779, and it contains over 100 stars similar to the Sun and a number of red giants. And almost all of the stars in this cluster are roughly the same distance and the same age, with the exception of 30 or so what's called blue stragglers, which makes this cluster one of the most studied objects for those studying stellar evolution. And our last object is NGC 2775. And it's a nice spiral galaxy, by magnitude 11, discovered by William Herschel. And it has multiple spiral arms, a few H2 regions, which means there was recent star-forming activity occurring in it. So this may be a small, faint constellation. Not as well known as some, but it has some fascinating objects and stars and legends with it. So take a tour through it, and I know you'll enjoy it. As that, unless there's questions, Kelley, I'll turn it back to you, KC50ZT.
All right, thank you for that, Carolyn. I always look forward to going to the Texas Star Party every year because Cancer is definitely visible to the naked eye out there in dark skies, and so it's kind of neat. Of course, the Beehive cluster is always one of my favorites. All right, let's see if there's anybody who would like to check in before we move on to our next segment. If you'd like to check into tonight's Skynet, please come now with your call signs and your name and where you're transmitting from. Hearing no one, this is K5KTX, by the way, for ID. Let's move on to recent astronomical discoveries. So, Brenda, W5OZL, what do you have for us tonight?
Thank you, Kelley. First article is entitled 15 New Planets Confirmed Around Cool Dwarf Stars. Scientists report the existence of 15 new planets, including one super-Earth, that could harbor liquid water, orbiting small cool stars near our solar system. These stars, known as red dwarfs 1, maybe that's a footnote, are of enormous interest for studies of planetary formation and evolution. The research team led by Teruyuki Hirano of Tokyo Institute of Technology's Department of Earth and Planetary Sciences has validated 15 exoplanets orbiting red dwarf systems. One of the brightest red dwarfs, K2155, that is around 200 light years away from Earth, has 3 transiting super-Earths, which is slightly bigger than our own planet. Of those three super-Earths, the outermost planet, K2155d, with a radius 1.6 times that of Earth, could be within the host star's habitable zone. The findings, published in the form of 2 papers in the Astronomical Journal, are based on data from NASA Kepler spacecraft's second mission K2 and follow-up observations using ground-based telescopes, including the Subaru telescope in Hawaii and the Nordic Optical Telescope in Spain. Researchers found that K2155d could potentially have liquid water on its surface based on three-dimensional global climate simulations. Toronto expresses both excitement and restraint. As he says, in our simulations, the atmosphere and the composition of the planet were assumed to be Earth-like, and there's no guarantee that this is the case. A more precise estimate of the radius and temperature of the K2155 star would be needed to conclude definitely whether K2155d is habitable. Achieving such precision would require further studies, for example, using interferometric techniques. A key outcome from the current studies was that planets orbiting red dwarfs may have remarkably similar characteristics to planets orbiting solar-type stars. It's important to note that the number of planets around red dwarfs is much smaller than the number around solar-type stars, says Toronto. Red dwarf systems, especially coolest red dwarfs, are just beginning to be investigated, so they're very exciting targets for future exoplanet research. For example, while the so-called radius gap of planets around solar-type stars has been reported previously, this is the first time that researchers have shown a similar gap in planets around red dwarfs. This is a unique finding, and many theoretical astronomers are now investigating what causes this gap, says Toronto. He adds that the most likely explanation for the lack of large planets in the proximity of host stars is photoevaporation, which can strip away the envelope of the planetary atmosphere. The researchers also investigated the relationship between planet radius and metallicity of the host star. Large planets are only discovered around metal-rich stars, Toronto says, and what we found was consistent with our predictions. The few planets with a radius around about 3 times that of Earth were found orbiting the most metal-rich red dwarfs. The studies were conducted as part of the KES-PRINT collaboration, a group formed by the merger of KEST, which is Kepler Exoplanet Science Team, and ESPRINT, Equipo de Seguimiento de Planetas Roscosos Interpretado sus Tránsitos in 2016. With the planned launch of NASA's Transiting Exoplanet Survey Satellite in April 2018, Toronto is hopeful that even more planets will be discovered. TESS is expected to find many candidate planets around bright stars closer to Earth, he says. This will greatly facilitate follow-up observations, including investigation of planetary atmospheres and determining the precise orbit of the planets. The article is entitled Arrested Development, Hubble Finds Relic Galaxy Close to Home. Astronomers have put NASA's Hubble Space Telescope on an Indiana Jones-type quest to uncover an ancient relic galaxy in our own cosmic backyard. The very rare and odd assemblage of stars has remained essentially unchanged for the past 10 billion years. This wayward stellar island provides valuable new insights into the origin and evolution of galaxies billions of years ago. The galaxy, NGC 1277, started its life with a big bang, long ago, ferociously churning out stars 1,000 times faster than seen in our own Milky Way today. But it abruptly went quiescent as the baby boomer stars aged and grew even redder. The findings are being published online in the March 12 issue of the science journal Nature. Though Hubble has seen such red and dead galaxies in the early universe, one has never been conclusively found nearby. Where the Earth galaxies are so distant, the earlier galaxies, are so distant they're just red dots in Hubble deep sky images. GC 1277 offers a unique opportunity to see one up close and personal. We can explore such original galaxies in full detail and probe the conditions of the early universe, said Ignacio Trujillo of it's a place in Spain. The researchers learned that the relic galaxy has twice as many stars as our Milky Way, but physically it is as small as 1/4 the size of our galaxy. Essentially, NGC 1277 is in a state of arrested development. Perhaps like all galaxies, it started out as a compact object but failed to accrete more material to grow in size to form a magnificent pinwheel-shaped galaxy. Approximately 1 in 1,000 massive galaxies is expected to be a relic or oddball galaxy, like NGC 1277, researchers say. They were not surprised to find it, but simply consider that it was in the right place at the right time to evolve, or rather not evolve the way it did. The telltale sign of the galaxy's state lies in the ancient globular clusters of stars that swarm around it. Massive galaxies tend to have both metal poor, appearing blue, and metal rich, appearing red, globular clusters. The red clusters are believed to form as the galaxy forms, while the blue clusters are later brought in as smaller satellites and are swallowed by the central galaxy. However, NGC 1277 is almost entirely lacking in blue globular clusters. I've been studying globular clusters in galaxies for a long time, and this is the first time I've ever seen this, said Michael Beasley, also of the Instituto de Astrofísica de Canarias. The red clusters are the strongest evidence that the galaxy went out of the star-making business long ago. However, the lack of blue clusters suggests that NGC 1277 never grew further by gobbling up surrounding galaxies. By contrast, our Milky Way contains approximately 180 blue and red globular clusters. This is due partly to the fact that our Milky Way continues cannibalizing galaxies as we wing too close by in our local group of a few dozen small galaxies. Well, this is kind of a long article, so I think I'm going to stop there. These are both from ScienceDaily.com, and I will turn it back to the net. This is WB5OZL.
All right, thank you for that, Brett. Interesting stuff there. Now this is K5KTX, and we're going to move into space exploration and space history for this week. So NASA has powered on its latest space payload to continue long-term measurements of the sun's incoming energy. Total and Spectral Solar Irradiance Sensor, or TSIS-1, installed on the International Space Station, became fully operational with all instruments collecting science data as of this March. Dong Lu, TSIS-1 project scientist at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center in Greenbelt, Maryland, said, TSIS-1 extends a long data record that helps us understand the sun's influence on the Earth's radiation budget, ozone layer, atmospheric circulation, and ecosystems, and the effects that solar variability has on the Earth system and climate change. The instrument was launched from Space Launch Complex 40 at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station in Florida aboard a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket on December the 15th, 2017. After a 2-week pause, TSIS-1 was extracted from the trunk of the SpaceX Dragon capsule and integrated onto its permanent home on the space station. For over 2 months, the operations team at the University of Colorado Laboratory for Atmospheric and Space Physics, or LASP, in Boulder, Colorado, have been testing TSIS-1. First, the team tested the all-important pointing platform that directs the solar instruments at the sun. Next came testing of the solar instruments. TSIS-1 studies the total amount of light energy emitted by the sun using the Total Irradiance Monitor, one of two sensors aboard. This sensor's data will give us a better understanding of Earth's primary energy supply and provide information to help improve models simulating the planet's climate. The monitor first started collecting science data, called First Light, on January the 11th after its doors were opened to fully view the sun. The sensor extends a 40-year measurement of the sun's total energy to Earth. The second onboard sensor, called the Spectral Irradiance Monitor, measures how the sun's energy is distributed over the ultraviolet, visible, and infrared regions of light. Measuring the distribution of the sun's energy is important because each wavelength of light interacts with Earth's atmosphere differently. For instance, spectral irradiance measurements of the sun's ultraviolet radiation are critical to understanding the ozone layer, Earth's natural sunscreen that protects life from harmful radiation. The sensor experienced first light on March the 4th when full science data collection began. TSIS-1's Spectral Irradiance Monitor extends a 15-year record of spectral irradiance measurements. NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center has overall responsibility for the development and operation of TSIS-1 on the International Space Station for the next 5 years. LASP, under contract with NASA, is responsible for providing the solar irradiance measurements and providing them to the Goddard Earth Science Data and Information Services Center, the Archive and Distribution Center for TSIS-1 data, so they are available to the scientific community. And if you remember a couple of years ago, we have an astronaut by the name of Scott Kelley spent a whole year on the International Space Station. And Scott Kelley is a unique astronaut in the fact that he has an identical twin brother named Mark, who is also an astronaut. And while Scott was on the International Space Station, they did lots of medical studies on both him and his twin brother Mark. And so the results of that information came out, I think, like at the end of December or the early part of January. Well, of course, you knew it was going to happen. In the last few weeks, there have been lots of stories coming out about the fact that Mark and Scott Kelley are now no longer identical twins because of all of the DNA changes that occurred while Scott was on the International Space Station. Well, Mark and Scott Kelley are still identical twins. Scott's DNA did not fundamentally change. What researchers did observe are changes in gene expression, which is how your body reacts to your environment. This likely is within the range for humans under stress, such as mountain climbing or scuba diving. The change related to only 7% of the gene expression that changed during spaceflight that had not returned to pre-flight after 6 months on Earth. This change of gene expression is very minimal. NASA says that they are at the beginning of their understanding of how spaceflight affects the molecular level of the human body. NASA and the other researchers collaborating on these studies expect to announce more comprehensive results on the twin studies this summer. And in space history for this past week, starting with March the 11th, back in 1960, Pioneer 5 was launched from Cape Canaveral Air Force Station to begin research on the space between Earth and Venus. The spacecraft carried 6 scientific instruments used to measure magnetic field phenomena, solar flare particles, and ionization in the interplanetary region. Pioneer 5 sent over 3 billion bits of data back to Earth at a maximum speed of 64 bits per second. Regular data transmissions lasted only until the end of April 1960. The last communication of any sort with Pioneer 5 came at a then record distance of 22.5 million miles on June 26, 1960. Data from Pioneer 5 confirmed the existence of magnetic fields throughout our solar system. And this is K5KTX. March the 12th, just 3 years ago, 2015, NASA's 4 identical magnetospheric multi-scale, or MMS, spacecraft launched from Cape Canaveral. The MMS mission is the first space mission dedicated to studying a phenomenon called magnetic reconnection, a process thought to be the catalyst for some of the most powerful energy explosions in our solar system. The process occurs when magnetic fields connect, disconnect, and reconfigure explosively, which releases bursts of energy. The MMS mission's goal to provide the first three-dimensional views of the reconnection happening in Earth's magnetosphere. March the 13th, way back in 1781, astronomer William Herschel was searching for binary stars when he noticed something else. At first, he believed it to be a comet or a star, but many more observations led to the conclusion that it must be a planet beyond the orbit of Saturn. This made William Herschel the first astronomer to discover a planet with the aid of a telescope. He wanted to name his discovery Georgium Sidus, or Georgian Star, in honor of his patron, Britain's King George III. However, that name didn't stick. Instead, and in keeping with the tradition of deriving planetary names from classical mythology, the planet was ultimately named for the Greek god of the sky, Uranus. Grade school teachers have probably been disappointed by that outcome ever since. And this is one of my favorite stories from this week, March the 15th, back in 2009. Just as Space Shuttle Discovery was about to launch on STS-119 mission, a wounded bat grabbed a hold of its fuel tank to become an officially recognized stowaway, despite safeguards that are supposed to keep such things from happening. He was a bat pioneer, hell-bent on glory. As crew made their rounds checking for icy buildup on the Discovery fuel tanks, they were shocked to find a small free-tail bat clinging to the tank's foam insulation. It likely had a broken left wing and some problem with its right shoulder or wrist. Unfortunately, it did not appear to be wearing a tiny spacesuit at the time. Using infrared cameras, NASA officials tracked the bat's location to see how its temperature changed during launch. Surprisingly, the area where the bat hung stayed at a stable 60 degrees Fahrenheit, while the bat stayed a cool 7 degrees Fahrenheit, which means it didn't freeze or burn up at the time of the initial launch. As the rocket took off, the bat stayed put the whole time until it was impossible to track any longer. Though NASA states the poor creature probably perished shortly after takeoff, no one really knows, which means you can choose your own ending here if you want. Maybe he flew off just in time. He's now the first bat astronaut. March the 16th, way back in 1750, German-British astronomer Caroline Herschel was born. She's the younger sister of famed astronomer William Herschel that I was just talking about a moment ago. Her career as an astronomer began as William's assistant, including helping him manufacture his telescopes. Caroline began making observations of her own and quickly proved to have a knack for finding comets. She discovered her first in 1786. Over the following 11 years, she discovered 7 more comets. The catalogs she made of Herschel family discoveries are still in use today. In 1828, Caroline became the first woman to be awarded a gold medal of the British Royal Astronomical Society. She remained the only woman to receive that honor for well over a century and a half until Vera Rubin earned it in 1996. On Caroline's 96th birthday, the King of Prussia also presented her with a gold medal for science for her lifetime of achievements. Also on March the 16th, back in 1926, physicist Robert H. Goddard made history when he successfully launched the world's first liquid-fueled rocket. The culmination of 17 years of work aided by grants, the cylindrical rocket fired off from its frame and reached an altitude of 41 feet before falling back into the snow at was then farmland in Auburn, Massachusetts. The next day, Goddard wrote in his journal, quote, "It looked almost magical as it rose, without any appreciably greater noise or flame, as if it said, 'I've been here long enough, I think somewhere else if you don't mind,' end quote." Before Goddard died in 1945, he was the owner of over 200 patents, including one received in 1914 for multi-stage rockets, a concept in widespread use today. It's why he is recognized today as the father of modern rocketry. As NASA in the 1950s and 60s prepared to send humans to low Earth orbit and beyond, it became impossible to not recognize Goddard's revolutionary work. His pioneering contributions to spaceflight is recognized with a NASA center bearing his name, the NASA Goddard Space Flight Center. And also on March the 16th, back in 1966, Gemini 8 launched with Neil Armstrong and David Scott aboard. The mission conducted the first docking of 2 spacecraft in orbit, but suffered the first critical in-space system failure of a U.S. spacecraft, which threatened the lives of the crew and required immediate abort of the mission. This was Armstrong's first spaceflight. On his second and final spaceflight, Apollo 11, his calm and skill saved the day again when the lunar module was heading toward a landing in a field of boulders. And this is K5KTX. Tom, KE5ICX, do we have any visible satellite passages over the next few days?
Thank you, Miss Kelley. Yeah, we've got a few. We've got the International Space Station. Has several passes. We've got March 18th, March 21st, and 23rd. This is KE5ICX. Let's see here, March 18th. This one is a minus 3.4 magnitude at 6:50 a.m. 650 out of the northwest. Reached highest point at 6:53 at 65 degrees, and it will fall at 6:56 a.m. That is on the March 18th. Then we have March 21st. That one is, let me see if I can straighten this out so I can read it better. March 21st, there's actually 2 passes. The best one is the first, minus 3.6 magnitude at 5:53 a.m. Reaches its highest point at 62 degrees, so it's coming out of shadow. 5:53:42, and then 5:56. So you get about 3 minutes on that one. Let me look at the chart on that one. Yeah, it's about over half through the sky, goes through Scotum, Sagittarius, and then falls to the southeast. The last on the International Space Station that looks pretty good is March 23rd. March 23rd has passed minus 3.9 magnitude. This is in the evening at 20:42 or 8:42 local time. Reaches highest point at 20:45 in the southeast, and it'll fall at 20:47. So the March 23rd pass reaches mostly through the sky before it goes into shadow. It goes through Lepus, Canis Major, Cancer, which we talked about this evening, Leo Minor, and then Canis Venecti, to see if I can say that correctly. Next one is Tiangong 2. Tiangong 2 has a good pass on March 25th, 3.9 magnitude at 5:15 a.m., 19 degrees. Oh, wait a minute here. I'm sorry, the second pass is 1.3 magnitude at 6:47, or 90 minutes later. The west-northwest reaches its highest point at 6:51 at 52 degrees, and then falls at 6:54. And I neglected to put in the 26th, which also is a good pass. That's at 5:51, 41 a.m., 1.1 magnitude, 73 degrees. Now this one comes out of shadow at 5:51:47. That's probably why I did not include it. Let me look here real quick. Well, it goes halfway across the sky through Lyra, Sagittarius, and then down to the southeast. And lastly, way there is the NVSAT. This one seems to have pretty good reflective capabilities. March 19th is a good pass. That one is 3.1 magnitude at 2107 local time in the evening, or 9:07. Reaches its highest point at 2112 at 75 degrees. So it's pretty high pass. Then it falls from the west-southwest to the north-northwest at 2117, 10 degrees. Good pass is at March 22nd, 2.9 magnitude at 8:56 local time. Reaches its highest point at 84 degrees, or almost overhead, at 2101 local time, and then it falls at 2106. Let's take a look at that one real quick. Straight overhead, yeah, this is out the south and goes to the north. This looks like a pretty good pass. Passes through Hydra, Cancer, Lynx, Cepheus, and then to the north. So if you're interested in one of the more challenging passes, this is a really, really good one. Finally, I'll end tonight with the March 25th pass. March 26th, there's actually two. The best one is at 2228 local time, 928, 5.9 magnitude. This one may be a challenge out of the west-southwest. Reaches its highest point at 2947, so it's coming out of shadow, and then falls at 2131. If you like additional information on anything having to do with satellite passes, and remember, too, you can also do satellite passes for amateur radio satellites as well. So if you're interested in doing repeater work using amateur radio satellites, you can do that as well. They are included in the Kepler information over at heavens-above. That's heaven with a hyphen, heavens, plural, with a hyphen, above.com, heavens-above.com. Plug in your coordinates and you'll be able to see what is available in your area. If you're traveling, which I used to do a lot of, I would plug in whatever my coordinates were at the location I was at, and then be able to watch, particularly the International Space Station, but others are cool too. So that's it from me. This is KE5ICX. Back to you, Miss Kelley.
Thank you, Tom. This is K5KTX, and we have just a couple of minutes before we need to close it out. So do we have any comments or questions before we close the net? Please come now with your call sign.
Echo 5, Romeo, Romeo, Romeo.
KE5ICX.
Just flowers on the net. Super entertaining. Glad I could be.
All right, KE5RRR, I've got you checked in, and I should know what your name is, but I don't remember. Can you come back with your name and your location, please?
Trevor in Highland Park, ma'am.
All right, thank you for that. And Tom, what do you have before we close it out?
Normal state. Make it quick. Last Saturday, you were down somewhere in Florida. You were very close to the Kennedy Space Center. Anything you'd like to mention about that? I'm just curious because you had pictures of, I think, the vertical assembly building, KE5ICX.
Yes, Tom, this is K5KTX. Yes, I was in Orlando. Unfortunately, I did not get to go to Kennedy Space Center. I was waiting for the rest of my family to drive in from Texas. We were having a little family vacation time. My niece Orlando and works at Disney and all of her friends. So my sister and I went to Merritt Island Wildlife Refuge to do a little bit of birding, and so that's very close to the Space Shuttle landing facility, as well as, of course, the vehicle assembly building. You cannot miss if you're within several miles of it. It's just that big. However, I get to go back to Orlando next Friday for a professional development conference, and I am flying in 3 days early, and I will be going to Kennedy Space Center next Saturday, I hope, depending on the weather, and I will have more to report next week on Skynet. All right, let's close it out. Do we have any additional amateur radio operators that would like to check in before we close? Please come now with your call sign, your name, and where you're transmitting from.
Kilo, Foxtrot 5, Tango, Sierra Kilo, Burl and Dallas.
All right, KS5TSK, bro, welcome to the end of the net. Hope you got to be with us for a little bit of it. So tonight we had 23 hands participating on the air. Thank you to everyone who checked in this evening. We hope you'll join us here next week and every Saturday night at 9 p.m. to discuss astronomy, space, and space exploration. On this net, the sky is never the limit. We are always looking for net control stations for this and all the other DARC nets. If you would like to try your hand at this, contact any of the net controls by sending an email to nets@w5fc.org. You can follow topics and discussions about this net and astronomy in general on Facebook and Twitter, as well as our audio and video streams, video archives, and other useful internet resources by going to w5fc.org at the conclusion of this net. And I'm going to change the script up just briefly here. I couldn't let this net go by without recognizing the passing of Stephen Hawking. He passed away this past Wednesday, which also happened to be Pi Day and also happened to be Albert Einstein's birthday. So I wanted to close it out with one of his quotes. He said, "Remember to look up at the stars and not down at your feet. Try to make sense of what you see and wonder about what makes the universe exist. Be curious. And however difficult life may seem, there's always something you can do and succeed at. It matters that you don't just give up." So, until next Saturday night, this is K5KTX Kelley, and I'll be closing the net at 22:31 local time and returning the repeater to normal amateur use. Don't forget about the Afterglow Movie coming up in just a few moments. This is K5KTX, and I'm clear.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Kelley. And we'll reconvene here in about 5 minutes. 5 minutes, and then we'll start with Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome from 1985. We'll be back. This is KE5I6.
This is Whiskey Bravo 5, Oscar Zulu Lima. In net control this evening for the weekly installment of Afterglow Net. And tonight our movie is going to be Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. So what we're going to do is take check-ins and ask you whether you've seen the movie. And then we'll go around in rotation and get your opinions on it. But first, let's have KE5ICX, Tom General, give us his brilliant synopsis of this fine film.
Well, I don't know if it's a brilliant synopsis or not, but this comes from Wiki, so it's as brilliant as they make it out to be. So I'll just give you the straight stuff on this. It says it's 1985 Australian dystopian action film directed by George Miller and George Ogilvy. I don't know who that guy is, but anyway, I know who George Miller is. Distributed by Warner Brothers and written by Miller and Terry Hayes, sequel to Mad Max 2, Road Warrior. Mel Gibson is exiled to a desert, into the desert by the corrupt ruler of Bartertown, Entity, played by Tina Turner. And there are encounters an isolated cargo cult centered on a crashed Boeing 747 and its deceased captain. The film is the third installment in the Mad Max film series, and the last to feature Gibson as Max. The series was later given a fourth installment in 2015. By the way, I thought that was brilliant. Mad Max Fury Road, starring Tom Hardy in the title role. This has got a very long plot synopsis. I'm just going to summarize a little bit. It says, with the world climate altered to a parched nuclear summer, Max crosses the Australian desert in a camel-drawn wagon when he is attacked by a pilot named Jedediah and his son Transvia PL-12 Airtuck. Yeah, that's his name, stealing his wagon and belongings. Continuing on foot, Max follows their trails to a seedy community of Bartertown. While refused entry at first, Max is brought before the founder and ruler of Bartertown, the ruthless Entity. She offers to resupply his vehicle and equipment if he completes a task for her. She explains that Bartertown depends on crude methane refinery powered by pig feces, which is run by a dwarf called Master and his giant bodyguard Blaster. Master Blaster holds an uneasy truce with the Anti for controlled Bartertown. Let's see here. Max then faces, what happens is that there is, the deal is broken somehow, and then Max then faces Blaster and Thunderdome and uses his weaknesses to gain the upper hand. Refuses to kill him after discovering he is mentally retarded with an intellectual child. He tells Auntie it's not part of their deal, thus revealing her plot. Master, previously unaware of the arrangement to kill Blaster, is furious and vows to shut down the refinery and, by extension, Bartertown. Just to say, people aren't happy with that. Max is exiled and sent off on a horse. On a horse and then sent into the desert. Now, why anybody would do that to a horse, I don't know. Now, Mad Max, that's a different story. At any rate, near death, Max is found by a desert dweller named Savannah Nix, who hauls him back to her home, a primitive community of children and teenagers who live in an oasis. Lord of the Flies. The children survivors of a crashed 747, I think it was a 200, were left by their parents who went to find civilization. They believe Max to be a flight captain. Captain J.L. Walker, I checked the manifest, he's nowhere to be found, returned to fix the airplane and fly them to civilization. Max denies this and insists that they remain in the relative safety of the oasis, knowing that the only civilization within reach is Bartertown. So then we have Lassie running away. That's Savannah. And Tomorrowland, no reference. Well, you know. Max stops them by force, but another tribe member known as Screwloose sets them free during the night and leaves with them. Their leader, Slake and Thirst, asks Max to go after them, and he agrees, taking a few of the children with him to help. They find Savannah's group in danger, but are unable to save one of the children from the sinkhole. Lawrence of Arabia. With no supplies left, they are forced to head to Bartertown. There's a bunch of stuff that happens in Bartertown. Explosions ensue. Vehicle is taken out. There's a train that moves on. Everybody looks like they're from 1850 on the train, followed by jet-propelled weird stuff. At any rate. So the children, Jedediah, who is the guy that has the airplane, flies the children to the coast after they escape. There's a whole thing on that. We'll discuss it. And discover the nuclear devastated ruins of Sydney. Years later, the children have established a small society of them by themselves and other lost wanderers in the ruins. Savannah, now leader of the group, recites a nightly story of their journey, and the man who saved them as Max, still alive in the desert, wanders on to places unknown. Yes, I know there's huge potholes here, but that's okay. I thought it was a good movie. That's it for me. KE5ICX.
Okay, Tom. Well, thank you very much. All right. Let's start with checking people in. Come now with, in any order, or any mode, with your name, call sign, location, and whether you have seen the movie. Please go now.
Number Tango 5, Tango Mike, Tony and Aaron in Dallas, and we are watching the movie now.
November 5, Hotel Yankee Papa, Tom and Irving, Holly and I, and Anna watched the movie last night.
Kilo, Foxtrot 5, Tango, Sarah, Kilo, Burl in Dallas. I did see the movie.
Echo 5, India, Charlie, X-Ray, Tom, Louisville. Yep, I saw it too.
Kilo Charlie 5, Oscar Zulu Tango, Carolyn in Louisville, and I saw the movie.
Okay, let's give Echolink people a few extra seconds to check in if they want to come now.
This is Kilo Golf 5, Bravo Zulu Whiskey, Jade near Weatherford.
This is Kilo Foxtrot 5, Papa Delta Sierra, Billy and Sherman. Yes, I saw the movie.
Okay, we got N5TM Tony, N5HYE Tom, KL5TSK Burl, KE5ICX Tom, KC5OZT Carolyn, and KG5BCWJ, KF5BES Billy. And looks like everybody's seen the movie. Do we have any more check-ins now? well, let's go ahead and get started. Let's start with people's ideas about the plot, NT5PM. Are you still watching the movie? Are you ready to go ahead and make comments on it?
We're just a few minutes from the end, and there's probably some credits and stuff here.
Oh, why don't you go ahead and start us off with your comments?
In a lot of ways, this is a movie that just doesn't make sense. The beautifully maintained railroad tracks that they were just traveling down. I mean, I know what railroad tracks look like with no maintenance, and that's not bad. Heck, why the vehicle was kept waiting on railroad tracks. Why they have all these high-powered vehicles for going on chases around the desert anyway? Why did they have to go to Murder Town when, where did the grown-ups all went at once? And why they're assuming the kids, some of those kids are very young. The grown-ups can't have left very long ago. So if you look at this movie with things like logic and facts, it's really silly. Of course, this is a movie about having fun. The bungee jumping combat in the Thunderdome was excellent. The goofy characters are all one of a kind. It's actually pretty enjoyable, and actually it's good in spots. So we're going to finish it here. We enjoyed it. NT5PM.
Alrighty, well, N5HYP, what do you think?
I moved a bit. Tell me if my signal's good enough. My signal better?
I can barely understand you. Can you go to higher power?
Damn, I'm keep moving a couple of inches in the house. Okay?
It's a little better, but, I don't know. I think we've got some weather interference or something.
Well, everybody with lower power has noise on their signal, including you. But that's okay. I agree with Tony. From a logical standpoint, it's real silly. From an entertainment standpoint, yeah, because it works because there's a lot of weird characters involved, a lot of things that don't make sense, but then again, it's supposed to be the dystopian world and things don't make sense in the dystopian world. But, we can pick holes in it all night, but for what it is, especially a third sequel that probably the first one might have been better. I can't remember watching the first one or not, but anyway. We'll talk about characters later on. This is N5HYP.
Alrighty, bro. KF5TSK. Tell us what you think.
This is KF5TSK. I think the plot is really long, really too long. It's like Tom was trying to go through the whole thing, and it's like, it's just too much. The thing that bothered me the most about the movie is they're going through all this trouble to make methane, and yet they have jet fuel and aviation fuel. And it's like, well, where did all this fuel come from? As we know it, gasoline, I guess aviation fuel, if you don't use it, it goes bad. But like I said, the plot to me was just too long and probably had too many twists to it. Can't find TSK back to net.
All right, K5ICX Tom, go ahead.
Thanks, Brenda. Thanks for doing the net tonight. Well, yeah, I agree. I understand all that has come before and what people have mentioned. Yeah, the script is contrived. It's got Lord of the Flies in it. It's got the chase. There's always a chase. We got that in Mad Max 2. So we had to do it only this time with a train. And the next movie has another chase in it as well. The thing about it is it has a little bit of sensibilities of, I don't know, a little bit with Bartertown. It has kind of that Casablanca thing going on, which I like. It is fantasy. It really isn't science fiction so much from the standpoint of how it's run, but I think in the end it's a very fun movie. I love this movie very much, and I have a poster in the guest bedroom from this movie. So from Amsel when he was doing those things, he did a lot of work, lots of really great works of art when it came to films like what was it, Indiana Jones series and all of that. So I'm not really upset with the script so much at all. I've enjoyed this film quite a bit. I'll have more to say. I agree, the script is a little thin, but overall I still enjoyed it. KE5ICX.
Okay, KC5OZP, Carolyn, go ahead.
Well, I have to admit, I sort of liked the movie. It was entertaining. Yeah, I don't think I'd go out and buy it, but I'd never seen any of the Mad Max movies or any really familiar with them, but so I have to admit, even starting with the credits with all those odd names, I didn't know what was coming up, but I did, and I have to admit some of the scenes were sort of odd, but overall it was, the fight scene and sort of a look at a society, that could happen, in case of a nuclear war or something. And, there was it's hard to explain in words, but anyway, it was, I liked that he kept surviving and then was able to escape, and let me reset. Of course, I didn't know how they got so many people in that little bitty plane, but overall, I liked the movie. It was entertaining, but a little illogical in places. I think I will leave something for other people to say. KC5OZT.
Okay, KG5DZWJ, go ahead.
Okay, KG5DZW here. Get a little bit closer to here. Oh, like to say, it's not a movie. Yeah, you don't. It's one of those things where if you think about it, certainly things don't make sense. That plane was certainly one of them. Others have been mentioned. What can you say? It's like I tend to overlook the issues and plot holes just because with I actually I'll disagree with Pearl, and I kind of like the back and forth of it. I didn't think it was too much. It almost was, but it was fun. I honestly don't know what other questions to answer this round, so I think it's just, especially since I'm got a little headache. Anyway, I am rambling on, and that's a good sign. I need to switch over to the next person. KG5BZW, back to net.
Hey, Billy, JF5PDS, go ahead.
Yep, good evening. Yeah, I found this a very entertaining film. I had seen Mad Max and Road Warrior when I was in my teens. I'd like to see them again as an adult. I have not watched all of them as an adult. So, because I remember at first they all seemed kind of chaotic, but I guess they're mirroring a very chaotic world. But I thought that the plot, it started out very well constructed, and the storyline was very clear. I liked the dialogue between the characters. Loved the fight scene in the Thunderdome. I thought that was brilliantly worked out and choreographed. And then I think they covered up plot holes with a lot of action. And at the end, it did seem a little confusing. I agree with Tony about the whole railway scene, although I really like the vehicles. When we get talking about, I guess, the technology in the film, I'll make more comments about that. But yeah, I was a little confused at the disconnect, like, what's going on here? Why are they doing this? And why... there's some things I didn't understand. Of course, there were some parts I was trying to watch while Skynet was on, so I was trying to listen, and I had the sound down kind of low, so I may have missed some things in the dialogue, and I have to go back and rewatch that, see if I can pick up on any of those things. But I'm curious about the timeline of the movie, like how far, I was looking into like how far into the future Mad Max is, and I think Beyond Thunderdome said it's supposed to be taking place like right about now, like 2014, 2018, which I found very interesting. But I'm just wondering how long after, Sydney was bombed, is the film set? How far after the nuclear war is the film set? Because why would you fly to a city that was completely hot, and then want to live there? I wasn't sure, because at the end it was like the woman and the kids were in Sydney going to set up a new home among the buildings. But, I'm wondering how far, after this nuclear war is this, because they would be going back to like a totally, hotter than hot zone. So to me that didn't make sense. But, if they were given enough, but I was thinking there's probably not enough time because Max knew how to operate a record player, so that technology had not been lost to the adults. So I was thinking there's probably not too distant future from those characters. But so other than that, I thought the action was good. And I thought the movie was a good length. Had it gone on maybe 15 minutes more, then I'd say it was too long, but it rode the edge of being just about the right length, at like an hour and 42 minutes. I thought that was a good length to tell a good story with some action. So on the whole, I thought it was a very entertaining film. So with that, I'll return it to you. This is KF5PDS, back to net.
I enjoyed it a lot. I love the action and the characters and the music and just the whole concept. But boy, the plot holes are just unbelievable. And but you kind of didn't care because it's a fantasy, and just a lot of things don't make sense. I don't know what they fed the pigs or where they grew whatever they fed the pigs. I'm not sure it's cost effective to take grain and feed it to pigs to make methane. It might be better to use the grain to make fuel, but I don't know. And I didn't understand why there was this little oasis in the middle of the desert. desert. That was kind of unlikely. And the plane should have gone there instead of going to Sydney, because I don't know what there was there other than some empty buildings. This thing had some of the ugliest people I've ever seen. I don't know where they found these people. I mean, these people could almost, fill up the Star Wars bar scene with that rubber mask. They were so hideous. I don't know where they found them or what they did to them, but I don't know what happens in the future that everybody gets really ugly. So, I think I'll stop there. I'll have more later. So let's see if anybody else wants to check in. Maybe I'll close it out.
Echo 5, Romeo, 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 Marvin and Highland Park.
K5, Romeo, Romeo, Romeo. I'm sorry I missed your name. Would you start with it?
I'm just in for the count.
So, you don't have any comments about the movie then?
Negative, I just have it on. I'm doing some other stuff up here, and it was just entertaining.
All right, well, thanks for joining in. Okay, let's go back now and let's talk about the characters. So we'll start with Tony and T5TM. What did you think about the characters?
Well, hey, that was the strong point. Aaron especially enjoyed the young woman who was the kind of historian of the desert tribe of kids. She loved the way she spoke with, some of them had the luck and, jumped by Mr. Death. The guy who was kind of their medicine man with the dark circles around his face. And hey, their myth, she points out, actually did come true. They were taken to a better place by pilots with them stranded in the desert. So there's just so many unique characters in this movie. We even felt bad for Blaster. It's just all these odd people in such a strange situation. We just don't care what weird, quirky things they have to do just to keep making these people the story. So it's sort of odd. It's entirely character-driven, but that's what it is. Yeah, Tina Turner was not quite so good of an actor, but it's a character-driven action movie, which is an odd thing, especially when with such zany costumes. NT5TM.
All right, N5HYD, what do you think of the characterization?
It should be a little better, I hope. I'm cross-banding now. So, as far as characters go, yeah, I agree with Tony. I wouldn't say it was character-driven, but you were kind of drawn to the fact that there were these odd characters, that it was such an odd situation, that there was odd characters in this really quirky outback, after the apocalypse outback town. And that caused, that set the scene. Yeah, Tina Turner, really wasn't a good actor. She didn't have to. She was just Tina Turner. And Mel Gibson really isn't a great actor either. You know him because of his action, because of stuff like that. I mean, I think of Braveheart. But again, I don't think in this movie he's really a great actor. But, his purpose to be there is to be the action hero. And that's what he says. Back to that, and 5H5B.
your turn.
Well, there are a lot of odd things. You know, I looked at some of the characters and I was like, well, we know there are not going to be any dentists in the future because everyone looked like they had the strangest looking teeth. I don't know if they, you know, took a picture of someone else, but it just seems like, you know, they had kind of the old, and then there was the, you know, the record player, and it's like, you can't find anything like that record player now. So, you know, how did it fit into the movie? Mel Gibson had a radiation detector, and it's like, well, all the strange things that you're walking around with, you have all these old guns and knives, but you have a radiation detector, you know, that was quite small, so that was the unusual thing about it. Yeah, there was a lot of unusual characters, but in most cases it worked together. Something I thought was strange, everyone had guns, but no one ever got shot in the movie. You know, they were shot with an arrow. It's just kind of, you know, out of place the way things were. KF5TSK back to net.
Okay, ICX, Tom, go ahead.
I think the characterizations here, George Miller is one of these guys that really does a great job with creating characters, particularly in the Mad Max films. So I thought that Auntie Entity, played by Tina Turner, was an interesting character. She was the least believable of all of them, but kind of had that sexy overtone, and plus she can sing. So, and she sings the major tune and thing at the end of it. We need a hero. I thought that was interesting. Bruce Spence, who played Jedediah the pilot, he comes back. He was the gyro pilot in the first two films, in fact, and they asked him to come back. He went on and did something, one of those films, I can't remember what it, or one of those TV series out of Australia or New Zealand. But anyway, he was convincing with the kid in his characterization. The fun characters are the ones that really end up kind of doing the whole weird vibe that you get from, like, let's say Star Wars, maybe, I don't know. But at any rate, the characters are quirky, crazy, not sure what's happened after the big collapse of societies. Those are the characters that are interesting, and you wonder about their background and who they were and why they are where they are. Let me reset. You've got a few here. I'm looking through the list. You've got Angry Anderson, who's played by Ironbar Bassey, head of the Bartertown Security. This is the guy who has that doll's head on his back. You wonder, who is that guy? Why is he doing what he's doing? That's kind of cool. I like that because you don't know exactly where he's coming from and what he's doing. Also, over in Bartertown, you've got Master and Blaster. This guy is an engineer. He's got all the technical expertise. He is the guy who says, who runs Bartertown? I run Bartertown. And he humiliates Entity in the process. So this has been going on for a long time, way before the movie begins, and he just lets everybody know when she decides that she's in charge and the one that's pulling all the levers. Ultimately, Master goes in and pulls the levers and shuts everything down. So I thought that was pretty cool because after the world ends and we're all running around with in a desert, that somebody's got to be in charge, right? So Master actually runs everything. I like the Master Blaster combination, where you got a yin and a yang going on. You got the brains, you got the brawn, and being able to handle the whole thing. Of course, what do? You separate the two of them. That's the most fundamental thing that you have to do. Somehow or another, I have a feeling, even though I love this movie, that would have come to a quick end early on in this post-apocalyptic world. Those two would have been separated, and the Master would have been put into pretty much the same situation he is in this movie. Sorry, you don't have any control over anything. Blaster doesn't seem to have anything of technological wonderment to actually enforce the two of them together. So, as a practical standpoint, I don't think it exists. As characters, I think it's fascinating. I think it's really great, and it's a lot of fun in this movie. Move on to the Lord of the Flies part of it with the kids and everything. I thought that was kind of fun and interesting. Who was the character? Savannah Nix. She was the leader of the tribe, so I thought she was quite good. I love the idea of the one kid being the radio operator and going in and using all of our favorite slang and phonetics and all of that. To some extent, you can see that it's got a little bit of that extraterrestrial thing where you plug in the smarts to a previous society and bring it forward, I guess. I thought that was kind of cool in that sense. So I don't know. I just thought it was cool. Oh, my last character, my favorite character. Dr. Dealgood. He's the master of ceremonies and the auctioneer of Bartertown. This guy does a fantastic job. He comes in and he comes in as sort of an undertaker and a religious leader and a master of ceremonies, and he just takes and moderates all of those three things and boils them down into the center of attention. I just think this character is the best. It's played by Edwin Hodgman, I guess. It says here. I just love this guy. He's just fun. He says, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's dying time. So he takes everything and he does a 90-degree angle. Once he's done, he's very calm. He's very interesting. He takes the characterization and then he sums it up and then he says, all right, what are we really here for? And then he just blows it all away. He is by far my favorite character through the whole thing. And it's so fun to watch him on screen. I don't know if he did anything after this. I'll have to go and research it. But his characterization was wonderful. So I'll say that. The one thing, and I'll summarize this about all the other characters, all Mad Max films have very interesting, weird, crazy characters that have their moments in the sun. Very short, sometimes, usually they die, but always the characters are colorful, fascinating, fun, and you want to know more about them. That's it for me. KE5ICX.
Okay, Carol, KC5OZT, go ahead.
I agree with what Tom said, especially it's hard to remember something of tonight. But the Master Blaster, and I forget the little person's name, but they were sort of touching, you know. It's, you know, sort of a combination of some weird characters, some that made perfect sense, you know, and like that touching, and then of course I love the way the kids escaping on that train, you know, and then of course finally the plane, but you do sort of wonder how, I mean, you think some normal people would have escaped that, I guess it was atomic war, you know, or did that affect them so much that they became some of these weird characters, you know. It's hard, you don't know, they sort of leave that up in the air, just how they develop this strange society. K50ZT.
Alright, Jake, EG5, ECW.
ECW here. What? I have to say, I kind of agree with the statement that characters might be the best part. I mean, if you separate the action out, that might be the best part. But yeah, there's nobody that's, I mean, maybe they're one-dimensional, but they're one-dimensional in such interesting ways. I think I kind of taken a liking to the. I like Master and Blaster, but I kind of like the Savannah Nix character too. Just how I thought how she was convincing in being the tribe elder, I guess. And it's kind of just it's always funny and odd to see I don't know that she's ultimately wise, but you know, she's respected for her wisdom, and ultimately, you know, after they've made escapes and gone to the abandoned city, she has the last word, and it's a bad word. But I'm not sure what else to say about that. Yeah, some of the like cancers act. Mel Gibson didn't really have to act so much because he's kind of static character. He's kind of the, I guess, Yojimbo or whatever kind of guy, and of course, Tina Turner's character, you know, just generic. I'm not sure what to say. Just generic. I'm at a loss for words, but just kind of generic villain, I guess. But I mean, like the other characters, all the other characters, even though the extras, they all had just there's. If anything, they were just interesting to look at. If they didn't act well, they. I like your Brenda's statement of how I won't call him ugly, but I'll sure call him odd. But anyway, That I think part of the fun of the film. KG5BZW, back to net.
Yes, go ahead.
I'm with Tom. I agree with his comments. Yeah, Dr. Dealgood was an extremely interesting character who got, little screen time, but, just one of those little gems. You do kind of wonder about these characters and what led them to their places in the world as we saw them. I was thinking the same thing about Auntie Entity, Tina Turner's character, is like what led her to that position. She was a very interesting kind of Amazon-like warrior woman, but yet still had an air of refinement about her and culture, and you could tell she wanted to have a civilized city, but had to endure the constant humiliations of Master, lording it over her as being in charge of the city's energy source. And I thought that the thought out, plot to get to him by Mel Gibson's, Max fighting Blaster was, it was a good strategic move to try to he fought Blaster in order to, I guess, take Master down a few pegs in the pecking order, to really let him know that she is in charge. So I thought that was a well thought out plot point and character driven moment. And it was very sad when Blaster was killed, and you could see Master's heartbreak over that. And that really, it tugs at you. It's like, wow, these characters, they're not just mindless kill machines. They're not just killing for killing's sake. They're trying to, maintain an order, and it's still very chaotic, but they're trying to, develop some form of civilization and stability in their chaotic world. And I thought it was very touching and surprising when the helmet came off and you saw that Blaster was just this big, mentally impaired, it looked like he had Down syndrome, this mentally impaired, child man. And Master, when he pleaded for him, it was very heartrending, that he didn't know any better, that he was just doing what he was directing him to do, and to have mercy on him. So this film, had an air of exhibiting compassion and mercy, wanting to, but the world dictating harsher, outcomes. I thought the Wheel of Punishment was very interesting. They dealt with problems swiftly and harshly, with no intermediaries, no court, no lawyer. You just fought it out in Thunderdome. Two men go in, one come out, and if the deal is broken, I like that whole deal. If you break the deal, you get the wheel, and the wheel your punishment is determined by chance. So I thought that was a very interesting plot point. And Mel Gibson's character, he does not do a lot of acting, but his character is so well established that I thought this was just a chance to look deeper inside the man and see that there is some values to him. He again is not just some mindless killer. He does exhibit some compassion, and he works well with the kids, and is trying to help people. He's coming back to trying to help people, even though he is out to survive. He is trying to help, and he enlists the help of others. I thought Pig Killer was another interesting character, a man who got sentenced to the underworld to shovel pig crap because he slaughtered a pig to feed his family, so there's some compassion and values going on there, and I thought that was an interesting character. This film has very much a punk aspect, because the first film came out in 1979, and this was, in 1985, which was, beyond, punk music and things of that nature, but had a very punk nature to the film, because the post-apocalyptic just, leads to, I guess, anarchy in the punk culture. Lends itself well, and the costumes were very punk, I thought. And then, of course, Tina Turner did the music. She did the We Don't Need Another Hero, but she also sang the song that was in the opening credits, which I don't remember the name of that one, but I noticed she sang that song as well. So yeah, having an acting talent that can also, provide Grammy Award-winning, singer at the same time, adds to the character. But I thought that, that those characters, the lead characters, were well thought out. But then those ancillary characters, and some of the names were witty, like Screw Loose and Slake Mathirst. I thought those were some interesting names. And then the characters, like Pig Killer and Max and Auntie Entity, they were very well thought out characters, and I thought they all interacted well. And I didn't really see her as a villain. She just was a lady who was trying to keep her world together and knew what she wanted, and would not hesitate to use force to get it. So again, I thought all those characters, key characters, were good and entertaining, and just, they fleshed out enough characters to give you a taste of the world. All right, with that, I'll throw it back to you. This is KFI-PDS, back to now.
Okay, thanks. Well, this is W5FC. Yeah, I think the characterization is one of the really strong points of this movie. I'm hearing a lot of comments to that effect that, it's a really rough time, but a lot of these people have not lost their humanity, despite the hardships that they endure. And I thought Mel Gibson's character was really interesting, and compassion, and, he was a guy with character, and I like that. It seemed to me like there were no children in Bartertown. Maybe I'm wrong, but all the children were over there living alone. That was kind of unlikely to me. I don't know how much time there elapsed between the plane crash and the children waiting for the plane captain. But most adults remembered the pre-apocalypse world, and it was kind of surprising to me that more technology didn't live on from the previous world, or they didn't try and reinvent it or try and get it back. Even now in Australia, almost nobody lives in the desert like that. I would have thought they would have gone over to the coast and found a little bit more hospitable place to live, but they want you to believe the whole world is like that. But, made the story. Okay, does anybody else want to check in at this point? Okay, let's go around again. You can talk about anything you want to talk about. The fashions, or the sets, or anything that you like. Let's start at the top. NT5TM, Tony.
But yeah, for such a B movie, it did get us talking and thinking more than I would have thought. With the fashion, the costuming, it definitely projected a certain mood. But the Australian desert is very sunny. We were kind of talking here about the incredible sunburns everyone was going to get. I don't have too much more to say, but it was a little too silly for Aaron, but it was just about the right amount of silly for me this evening. NT5DM.
Alrighty, N5HYP, Tom, go ahead. Well, I think maybe Tom has gone to bed. KF5, KF5PSK Burl. Do you have any more comments?
This is KF5PSK. My last comment would be that, you know, they were so concerned about making electricity in Bordertown. It's like, well, what were they running? You didn't really see any fans. There was no air conditioning. You know, they needed to have light bulbs on in the daytime. I suppose no one really had, you know, a house or a building, so why did they have this, you know, terrific need for electricity? You know, they never really answered that question. KF5PSK back to net.
Okay, KE5ICX. What do you have to say?
Well, one of the things I would like to point out in this movie, or what I really enjoyed, was Maurice Jarre's music. Now, this guy is an iconic composer, and he, if I remember, and I read this somewhere a long time ago, is that he channeled one of his iconic scores for this film, which was Lawrence of Arabia, which is my favorite movie of all time, by the way. What he did was he took this movie, and because it's in a desert and all of that, and produced something similar to his Lawrence of Arabia, but also put in a little bit of a hard edge, quirky edge, having to do with all the characters and what's happened and how the world is warped around. And I think he delivered probably the finest score of any of these films by far. Even the latest one, while it has a good score, I think this is the finest score of any of the Mad Max films. I enjoy it. It's rich. It's lush. It produces the evoked feelings that you need to have. It delivers on so many levels, and it shows how brilliant Maurice Jarre was when doing motion pictures. And this film is no exception. As I've mentioned, and I have a weakness for bad movies, this is probably fits in there, but it's on the upper end of those bad movies in the sense that there is a connection between the audience and the characters. I think that the storyline just kind of goes in all these different directions in a way that's fun and entertaining. Does it make sense? No, probably not. This is a fantasy world, but I think overall what the glue to this film and all of the Max films is the characterization. The characters are fascinating, they're fun, they're interesting, and when they interact together, it is just really engaging. And I think that's what makes the Mad Max films so much fun. Starting with the first and even this last one, and we have sequels coming, it matches that. It makes it work. The characters really do care. They're interesting. The character who is least interesting is Max, really. In the first movie, he's interesting. Second movie, he's more or less kind of the victim or the straight man and all of it. And I think he still is in this. He's crazy. Let's see what he said. He's crazy, but he reacts to everybody around him, and I think he plays that character. I think that's the thing that makes the film interesting. Is how do you react and act and all of that. So I'll stop there, but I enjoyed, in summary, I thought the music was excellent, one of the best films ever, and I wondered why I've not bought this score after all these years, and after hearing it, I want it. I want it badly, and I thought the characterization was the strongest part of this movie, sans the music. KE5ICM.
Okay, next, KC5OZT. Go ahead, Carolyn.
Well, yeah, I liked the music too. That was, high point of it, and it's interesting, and like I say, it was almost a primitive society. It actually makes you think of going back in time, civilizations back maybe several centuries ago, and yet you didn't see okay, and I'm thinking of the town, border town. You didn't see marriages, you didn't see children, and how did they think they were going to carry on? They sort of glossed over that idea. Then, of course, you have the other children, and I can say that was neat that they escaped, but you sort of wondered, you would think that people survivors, they would be building, if not stone buildings or something, maybe tents or something, and you didn't see many animals, just there's pigs, and I can't remember if we saw anything else, but you wonder just why, they weren't trying to build a more permanent settlement. It's hard to describe, but that struck me as sort of odd. H5OZT.
Yeah, that's something I thought about too. They're not really, I don't know what these people did for a living. They just seem to lord about all day other than people working with pigs. You'd think there'd be some industry, people making clothes or growing food or having little shops. There'd be something a little more civilized than that. Okay, next, KG5BZWJ.
Yeah, nice few comments. Here. Kind of highlight where, I think it's one of those. How to say this? There's a rule I've read on TV tropes called the rule of awesome, which is featured prominently throughout this film. I think that's pretty much where it doesn't. Well, the rule of awesome is that if it makes you give you a feeling of awe, you use it in the plot, and people will probably accept it. But how this Bartertown works, if you actually have to think about it. Okay, so this town's powered by pigs. Well, where's the food coming from for the pigs? like that. And yeah, everything's being bartered, but surely, no, maybe that's where the train, I don't know, but it's a dead end. But anyway, it's stuff like that where it's like, well, okay, there's really a lot of explanation that needs to be really put into that in-depth explanation. I mean, that needs to be given to explain some of the things in this movie. But does it really need to be explained? Is there any way that it can be patched up? Some of the holes I think can be. Some things like the aircraft. That's a small aircraft. You're not going to. My dad had a private plane. You're not going to have too many people getting on board a Cessna 180. I don't know how much more or less of that airplane could carry. I kind of doubt it would carry much more than that. Then we had how many kids getting in there? But anyway, whatever. The airplane served its purpose, and it's not necessarily meant to obey the laws of physics. What else to say? Let me reset. I'm not sure if there's anything else to say. I really enjoyed the film. Points, balls and all, but it was enjoyable. Like, I just, sorry for being redundant there, but yeah. I know this is a point. This is a time when you go into details and characters and stuff. But I'm getting really kind of tired. So, looking forward to next week. KG5BZW.
KF5 PDS Philly.
Yeah, with regards to the music, I absolutely love it. Maurice Jarre is an amazing composer and composed a lot of my favorite films' scores, going back to as early as there was a film in the 70s. It was a Disney film called The Island at the Top of the World, and I didn't see that until the 80s when I was a teenager, but I absolutely loved that Disney movie. But he did a very memorable theme for that movie, and that really stuck with me over the years. But he did the music for, in the 80s, memorable movies like Dreamscape. He did Enemy Mine, Fatal Attraction, Dead Poets Society. So there's a lot of films that are, award-winning, and he did the award-winning scores for them. And he also is the father of electronic pioneer Jean-Michel Jarre, who I absolutely adore his music. But I think Maurice Jarre is a wonderful composer because he can do, very complicated. He did very complicated, especially electronic scores. But I've always loved that the mood and, it really helps to put you in the world of whatever movie you're watching. It's very engaging, and it really helps draw you in. And it can be very minimalist, or it can be very complicated. But I love 80s music, especially synthesizer music. I love analog synths. I would love to have one myself, but they're very expensive. And if I knew more about electronics, I would buy a kit and build one. But I love the music to the films. Whenever I see Maurice Jarre's name come on the screen, I always get very excited because I know I'm in for a good score, because it just really draws you into the world of the movie. So it really complements and enhances the mood of the films always. So with that, I'll return it to you. This is KF5 PDS. I look forward to hearing what's going to be on next week.
Okay, this is W5FC. Do we have any late check-ins?
KE5RRR net control.
KE5RRR, go ahead.
Great net. Just certainly entertaining, and I'll be clear back to net control, KE5RRR.
Well, thank you very much. We do this every Saturday night, and the range of movies varies. It could be a really low-grade B-movie or one of our favorite sci-fi movies. They're always sci-fi, but always stimulating conversation, and I enjoy it too. All right. Well, it's almost midnight. Does anybody have anything that you're just itching to say, to add before we sign off here? Please come out.
For Tango 5, Tango Mike.
NT5TM, go ahead.
I had a really good thought earlier. I was, it was really fitting because I was hearing Tom mention that he had a weakness for bad movies. But we were just kind of wondering if people in the future, in addition to flying cars and things, will maybe not have such a weakness for bad movies. Because, when Aaron and I were younger, if you wanted to see a movie, you had to go to the theater. If you watched TV, you had to watch what was on. Maybe there was a local movie critic, but you often didn't know whether something was good or not. And so we saw a lot of crap because we either didn't know any better or didn't know it was going to be crap or just needed to pass the time. So now that people have much better information available, we wonder if they will start avoiding the bad movies and grow up without the bad movie weakness. NT5TM.
Yeah, possibly. Back in the 70s, every Saturday night there was a program called a Film Vault, and they brought out all these B movies, and we watched them religiously every Saturday night. So I saw an awful lot of the old bad movies, and there were some other series of movies like that too. I don't know if there are any on right now, but that's true. Maybe in the future people will have better taste. I don't know. All right, Tom, do we have anything for next week yet?
E5ICX. Yes, I have a comment on Tony's comment. Let me say this, is that the accidental abilities of the internet and other means of connecting to the universe, I think you're always going to find bad stuff, and it's going to be passed around as bad stuff. As with anything, and I think one of the most important things, and I will tell you what the movie will be, but first, I'll say this, is that I think that sometimes really bad movies are bad movies only because things go out of control. A good heart can occur, and you can make something that is actually pretty good and can transcend the test of time if the whole thing as it's done is somewhat pure, meaning that somehow or another the director, the producers, the actors, and everybody thought they were doing something good. In the end, science fiction has a tendency to make things go out of control because it's hard to figure out exactly what the future is going to be and how much it costs to make that future. Sometimes television series, movies, and that can be enduring only because we can see through that. A series that reminds me of that is Doctor Who. The early shows and the early seasons of that show were terrible as far as production value, but the stories were good, the acting was fun, not necessarily good, but fun, and people glommed onto it. The original Star Trek's the same way. The acting isn't that good, let's face it, folks, but the stories were good. The special effects were not good. Was it the only thing on? No, because it was way down in the ratings, and it died in season 2, and then it was resurrected in season 3, and probably shouldn't have been. So, because season 3 episodes were not that good. But it endured because people liked it, connected with the characters, and the honesty that went along with it. The sheer force of will, the ability to be able to make the thing above and beyond the crapulence that it was. And I think that will go on for a long time. And that's one of the reasons why we sit here and we talk about these films. They're endearing because of those reasons. Will that happen in the future? Yeah, because it'll get around. It'll get around on Facebook, it'll get around on Twitter, it'll get around on whatever the latest platform will be. Somebody will say, this is great, or it's terrible, but it's good because. And that will always be a part of it. And with that being said, our next movie will be, and this was mentioned actually by one of the Star Trek people, Michael Kuda actually mentioned this today, which surprised the heck out of me. I sent a note back to him and said, hey, this is going to be our next movie. The Day After from 1983. 1983, I was around back then, and I remember, well, yeah, I was way before that now, but The Day After, a nuclear bomb hits the United States and what happens. This is actually a pretty good movie. It is available online. Links are there. If you join Afterglow Movie on Facebook, Afterglow Movie, that's 2 words. Just say you want to be a part of it, or send an email to, if you're not a big fan of Facebook, ke5icx@yahoo.com. Just say you would like to join, and I'll send the link, or you can just find it over on YouTube. It's there as well. So that's it. The Day After, 1983. It came out for next week. This is KE5ICX.
Thank you, Tom. Well, we had 9 participants tonight. Thank you all for your wonderful comments. And so we're going to close the net. It is 23:55. And this is WB5OZL Clear.